How do you think the Steelers play it with Joe Haden and maybe even Steven Nelson? Because he seems really adamant. He said it on Twitter that, I'm not
Hmm.
getting cut. Do you think maybe the Steelers and those two at
Hmm.
cornerback will actually work out some type of deal restructuring? Because if you're the cornerback too, like
Yeah.
Joe Haden or Steven Nelson, I don't know how big the market's going to be this year because of how the salary cap is.
Hmm.
So it might just
To
be
me,
be wise to stick around here, maybe take a little bit of a
mhm.
pay cut. You extend that over however many more years.
Yeah, I mean that is an approach that they could definitely take. More so with Joe because he's made a ton more money throughout his career. From my experiences, the guys that have made a lot of money, whether it was early in their career or through the middle part of their career, they're a lot more open to taking less to stay. They're a lot more open to those type of things. For the younger guys that typically haven't seen, the money that Joe Hayden has seen, they haven't seen the money that Ben Roethlisberger has seen. They're not as prone to doing that. So that's my only thing with that. I do think, honestly, though, that Joe Hayden is safe just because of his play. When we watch both Joe and Steven these past 2 years, we thought that Joe played at a high level both of these years. We said that Steven Nelson pushed him to see who was the better corner 2 years ago, but we felt last year that Steven kind of tapered down, whereas Joe was still being who he was. So understanding that, I think Steven is more so the candidate than Joe. But I also think that Vince is a big time candidate because of those numbers that we just read off, and knowing that they at least have some type of insurance in place, knowing that Devin Bush is coming back, knowing that you could bring back Robert Spillane very, very cheap. So I think that
And he played good when he
understanding
was
that,
healthy. Like that
no, no,
doesn't
very
seem like
true.
a bad idea for
Yeah,
a tandem coming up this year.
yeah, very true. But that's the big thing surrounding why I could definitely see the scenario where Vince becomes, a casualty. Now, DeCastro, that's the big one. That's the one where you really see what this team is trying to do. I think if they move on from DeCastro, I think that we're definitely going to start seeing, them next year making that full overhaul of look, we're rebuilt. Like this is it. All right, that we're done with that. If they bring the Castro back, it makes me think a little bit more about what you were saying earlier. That hey, maybe they'll try to do something to bring Ben back potentially. Maybe they'll do something like that. Just because from a money standpoint, that's still a ton of money tied up. And if he's not playing up to par, you could just see what it looks like. So that's my thing with that, man.
He's going to be interesting next year, huh? Because
Very interesting,
is it
man.
just a down year? He was hurt at the beginning of the season,
Hmm.
and we know how good he's been throughout his career. Will he have a bounce back?
Yeah,
Because that's a lot of money. That is definitely a lot of
it's a
money. And if
ton of
and
money,
if we're
right?
saying Fowler at this point, based off
Hmm.
last year, is a little bit better than
Yeah.
DeCastro, 14, 15 million versus maybe 5 or 6, that could be a pretty big
Hmm.
deal.
Or are we saying that Kevin Dotson right now is better than DeCastro?
Oh
Because
yeah. I mean, I'm
either
saying that,
way,
but
if those are the, but this is my thing. If both of those guys are the starters, whether if it's Fowler and Dotson, you're simply saying that one of those guys, or both of those guys are better than David DeCastro. That's my thing. Are you ready off of the small sample size that we saw from Dotson? Now, granted, it was very impressive, but it was still a small sample size. Or how confident are you going forward that that can be the guy? How confident are you going forward that Matt can continue to be the guy at guard, or do you want to move him? Those are the things that they're going to have to address right now. And I'm just glad, like I said, that we don't have to play Kevin Cole. We could play Kevin Cole, but we don't have to beat Kevin Cole. But if that makes sense,